Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we're bringing you day 420 of Russian invasion into Ukraine. As always, with former advisor to the office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel Olexiy Arestovych, and Russian opposition politician and lawyer Mark Feygin. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feygin Live. It is Wednesday, April 19th, and time is 2 minutes past 10 in Kiev, same time in Moscow, and we're doing our usual stream, day 420, with Olexiy Arestovych. Good evening, Olexiy. Yes, hello, Mark. We are starting with about 64,000 watching us live, and 16,000 of you click the like button. My usual ask, please continue sharing links, clicking the like button, and subscribe, if you have not done that yet, to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station if you are listening or watching that in English. Alright, let's start. We discussed the statement made by Zelensky about the tempo of military aid. There was some reaction to that, and today it was just recently announced another package of help from the United States. It's pure military help for $325 million, according to the White House. They made a statement maybe an hour and a half ago. They announced that this package would be coming, and yeah, it did today. So we understand that this package is a reaction to Zelensky's message that he sent in his TV appeal. Is there any interesting nomenclature in this? Is it any stuff for the counteroffensive? Mark, there is nothing supernatural in this one. These are planned supplies. These are artillery shells of 105, 150 millimeter caliber. It is important supply. Professionals know how to use it. It does not necessarily indicate that this is for counteroffensive, but we do have to recognize that everything that we're getting will be used for that main task that Ukrainian forces will be solving in the time to come. So everything will be used for that counteroffensive effort. Alright, let's take a look at the map. What's happening on the front? We're showing the area of Bakhmut. Minister of Defense is reporting that Russian troops are pushing both in the center and on the flanks, and they're compressing their hold around Bakhmut. And elaborate on that and the other parts of the front. Situation in Bakhmut is very difficult, seriously difficult, because they are using their firewall by destroy a block and then move in. The fighting is difficult, it's hard. Both sides are incurring losses, and of course we lose less than the ones attacking, but still. As for south and north of Bakhmut, we are also fighting, and we're actually pushing them out a little, but again, it's not major offensive, it's same smaller movements, like we take a small village to the left, bit of a trees outcropping that allow us a better position. So there are small tactical motions. Avdiivka, interesting spot, also a lot of fighting. Our president actually visited that, visited the command post, gave the medals and awards to our fighting personnel there. Zaporozhye, Ugledar, and Kreminaya without major changes, fighting everywhere. Heaviest are in Marinka, Avdiivka, and Bakhmut. Although, I did say Ugledar first. Ugledar is also enduring some fighting. Not as heavy, but there is. Aide to the Minister of or Vice Minister of Defense, Hanna Mahler, made a statement: do not diminish counteroffensive to certain actions, direct actions, on the certain parts of the front, the complex of things we're doing can all be assigned to counteroffensive effort because we are working on a ton of different activities. Some of them are storming by nature, others are defensive and involved with logistic chains, supply chains. All that is part of our big counteroffensive effort. That's what she stated. So this almost sounds like we should not be expecting some concentrated counteroffensive push. That it's she sees it more as the chain of different events that altogether summarily will be considered as counteroffensive. Is that the smoke screen, or is that how we should be taking it? Mark, I don't know about the smokescreen. She's the Vice Minister of Defense, so if anything, she knows a lot about our current situation. And I can say that we definitely do not know the format of this counteroffensive effort. Will it be a concentrated push? Will it be a waterfall, a series of events happening, or us looking for advantageous position on different parts of the front and probing before we do the offensive, or I don't know, maybe everything like they say about in the poem about Second World War that everybody, everything at 4 in the morning. Oh, we actually have an air raid siren. Okay, are you staying with us or are you going down to the shelter? No, Mark, I'm staying with you. Okay, so Putin went, there are some details floating up now, that he went to the group Dnieper on the Russian side of the front. He was received by General Lapin, the fellow we talked about earlier in other streams. And he visited the position about 130 kilometers away from the front, probably not by accident, because it's a little further than current means allow Ukrainian troops to reach beyond the front line. And of course, there are rumors that it's not him, that it's one of his doubles. It's a little bit paranoid theory about doubles, but it's a fun one. And personally, I think it's entertaining because it just gives us more work to eliminate all of them. Just like the Iron Mask, you delete one, there is another one showing up. Yeah, like Figaro here, Figaro there, and not even himself, right? So do you think there is real basis to believe that he visited front? Because we did discuss that he's not the one who visits front. He's a bit scary. So what do you mean? The question, is there basis for his doubles to exist? Yeah, doubles and so on. Mark, I know for sure that Putin does have doubles. You don't need to be guessing. He does have them. Even the simple thing that Putin never shakes hands, it's his doubles who do. Putin, who is afraid for his life and meeting everybody at a big table or at a distance, will go under HIMARS to Ukraine. So no, of course, it's extra warranty, and they do have doubles to send there for these operations. So there is nothing to be surprised about. All right, so you think it's his doubles? I don't think. I know for 99.9% that these are. So what does it mean in the general thing? What do you mean? It's a double, yeah. Fake Putin visited his troops with a fake visit. There's not much consequence to that. So, Mark, when new general prosecutor of Russia will be looking for Putin, then you will have a lot of things to worry, because you'll have to catch 5 of them and then do the expertise to determine which of them is real. That's somewhat problematic, yes. Right, because if they do a coup in Russia, they might eliminate Putin, but we don't know whom they killed. Did they kill a real one or his double? And where is the real? Well, Mark, those who, if they will do a coup, they will know whom to kill, because they pretty much are involved in creating these doubles and maintaining them. And it's obvious how to find one. It's easy to understand that the double will never fight for power, same as Putin will. And also, they usually don't know real mechanism of management, which buttons to press where, and which orders to give whom. Doubles are not created for that. They're never involved in actual management and decision making. Their task is to walk down the stairs from the airplane, come to the front command center, shake hands, smile for camera. So they will not be able to hold any power. All right, 151,000 are with us. 53,000 already clicked the like button. We've been for about 10 minutes live, and I understand Alexei's internet is a bit laggy. It's, I see you complaining in chat, but that's our connection today, so please bear with us. We'll continue. So, next question. Danilov made a statement that, in difference from Zelensky, who actually visited almost 3 miles into Avdiivka, to the place that is surrounded on several sides, that, of course, it was not Putin, it is a double, and we understand that, Putin doesn't visit danger zones. Public commentary is laughing at it, and posting a ton of memes about the doubles, and I'm getting a ton of questions about Putin doubles. So you think he does have them? Mark, I don't think. I know for sure he does have them. It is a known fact in certain intelligence circles. This is a known fact. So basically, you're instructed to operate implying that he has doubles. So that means he does. So there is another statement by General Malamush that Ukrainian military destroyed 78% of all the elite troops of Russian Federation. We're destroying from 500 to 1,000 occupants daily, and in lieu of 2 months, we deleted 6 brigades of elite detachments of Russian military. So who's fighting? If they're out of their elite troops and they're just amateurs or mobilized, yeah, amateurs are fighting, and it's not the first estimation, not just by our experts. The West also came to the same conclusion. So that you understood, several brigades of special forces, they've changed their personnel, they changed their roster 5 times in lieu of this war. Amazing. How many, who is being used to refit these units? Reservists, newly mobilized, additional, everybody who served there before, who still was willing to come when called upon. Paratroopers are 60% fresh. Everything else was destroyed. There is still a little bit on the higher level of a cadre corps, but not too many. They lost a lot in cadre troops. They lost a lot of specialists, whom it takes at least 3 to 5 years and a couple $1 million to prepare each. 5th Brigade, a well-known one, rotated their personnel at least twice during this conflict. And I need to clarify, was it the data that I saw, was it during the last, the span of last period, was it entire year? And one needs to understand, a good specialist takes years to prepare. As something to compare, on the West, a group of special forces is considered to be operational and well composed after they have been training together for 4 years. So you can imagine they need to be working on different they need to be training, they need to be working, engaging in different situations for 4 years until they're considered to be fully functional. So Russia fully lost the troops that are supposed to be quick reaction group. So that guy who was working in the times of Georgian conflict on the Russian military, who was refitting them into a new format, he was basically putting a special bet on paratroopers, on special reaction forces, on super fast reacting groups, and the fast reacting groups, they should be even arriving to the situation even before the special forces. That's why they changed the model of their professional military, and they lost all that. So now they're changing everything. They're changing their conscription, mobilization forms, formats. They're changing the size of their military back to 1.5 million. Instead of 250,000 of professionals. So they're really changing it because they're out of those professionals. And they're changing their plans, how they wage wars. They're preparing, as I said before, for the second round of this war because their current military model did not allow them to achieve the goals that they set. And it's the same situation as with pilots. They still have a ton of airplanes, but they're lacking good pilots. A lot of them were killed during this war, or were downed or lost. Even if they have, unlike the other detachments where they may be lacking more hardware, they still have enough jets, but they don't have enough people to pilot them. And all these professional special forces and paratroopers, they've been decimated so significantly that they changed their roster 2 or 3 times, 100%, up to a level of battalion. All right, we've been live for about 16 minutes now, and we have 200,000 with us. Vladimir Zelensky made a statement that he visited the border of Ukraine with Belarus and Poland, and he stated that it is an honor for him to visit this part of their border and to congratulate our border guards on their service, to thank them for the quality and for decisiveness and reliability, because they also were used in Bakhmut as well, these detachments, and now they rotated back to the border. So I think this is another opportunity to talk about the possible threat from the north, from Belarus, given everything that Lukashenko is doing there. I think today he actually received Pushilin in Minsk yesterday, Mark. Sorry, I was traveling. Yeah. How does that look together? Well, this is an answer to Pushilin's visit, basically, and it's a reaction to attempt to place tactical nukes in Belarus that are threatening Poland specifically, and also try to preclude the situation or address an advanced situation of another wave of refugees that may be expected in summer. Some intel communities are saying that the time when temperature heats up a little and refugees can live in tents along the border, they will not need a special heating service and all. They might bring another wave of refugees through Belarus to try to pour them into Europe. So this is a signal to Poland, to our troops, border guards, that they would be ready for possible scenarios. I would say that to our viewers, do not expect anything more but provocation from Belarus side, because Lukashenko is continuously evading, throwing his own military into this conflict, but there likely will be some provocations. Given that we are armed, we are in a state of war, any provocation will be met with force. And we are demonstrating also to our neighbors to the west that we are ready to share that burden of possible threats on the border with Belarus. So that's, I guess, the core message of this visit. Another thing, what's interesting, Patriot systems from US, Netherlands and Germany have already arrived to Ukraine, as confirmed by representative of Ministry of Defense, Alexander Pavlyuk. So you think that Patriots are already in service and they can shoot down some of the missiles. I don't know, Mark, if they're already on duty, if they're already operational and set, but the fact that they're already in Ukraine, that does imply that they are either already on service or somewhere near getting to that state. There was an air raid, remember, a few minutes ago, so according to what I'm seeing, there was some UAV object shot down or shot at least, and downed. So I also want to say that RST, the German system, the new one that they supplied, they don't even have it with their army, but they gave that one to us as well. It's newer than Patriot. It works for a smaller distance, up to 40 kilometers, and Patriot works to 150. But this is the freshest air defense system, one that already works here in Ukraine and works glamorously every time. So we had one, and we just got the other one, so we're making our air defense system stronger, especially in light of possible counter-offensive maneuvers. So, do you think the presence of Patriot systems can help to defend from Ha-22 missile? We'll see, Mark. I don't know all the technical details and how sensitive some of the ones that I know, if I can disclose that. But for sure, we can say that these new systems have capabilities that our air defense systems lacked until now, and we'll see. We'll see when we start using it. All right, let's continue going. There is some suppressed scandal with supplies of agriculture products from Ukraine. There are some limits imposed on it when it is being supplied to Europe through Romania, Hungary, and even Poland sometimes. We understand that Ukraine does need to realize to sell agriculture product to fill its coffers and budget. So what is that? What does that mean for Ukraine if there are some limits in Europe on the Ukraine sales? It doesn't. So, Mark, right now we're still figuring out situation between Ukraine, between the neighboring countries that imposed some limits on our agricultural tax-free sales and overall management of European Union. And according to European Union and to Ukraine, these actions of our neighbor countries are in conflict with current system, so it's hard to tell if that'll indeed have a long-lasting effect on our trade, but I think eventually we'll find a way how to do that. And we need to also understand how much European Union can control the decisions made by individual members of that union when they misalign. So, do you think this may be a rehearsal of accepting Ukraine into European Union, because this is basically introducing a competitor for agricultural products to whatever is already available on the European market? I want to say that in Europe they already have interesting problems. For example, I visited Paris recently, and they're out of mustard. And apparently mustard is 80% vegetable oil, or certain seeds that are being pressed for that oil, and most of that supply comes from Ukraine. So I would say that European Union allows countries to build their economy to a degree that they want to. I was usually a Eurosceptic, but after visiting and looking deeper in that matter, specialists are saying that within the same European Union, the economic freedom is very wide. That's why, for example, Estonian and Latvian models are different from Polish model. Czech, Italian models differ. So countries, they have their own structures. They develop economically in the way they like. So European Union is more of a higher level umbrella. But yeah, we understand that quotas will be a factor sooner or later, especially on agricultural products. But it's a very specific question that can be dealt with, because we always have markets of Northern Africa and Middle East, especially when it comes to grains. The demand there is very high. All right, well, we hope you'll figure it out. When the war is over, you'll dedicate some time to figure out all the details of that. Okay, I have another interesting news I wanted to bring up with you. Apparently, there are some fun stories in Ukraine related to mobilization. There was some guy who hit the news today. He was evading mobilization. Guess how? He bought through a fake, through a person, through another person, bought a jail sentence, conditional jail for 3 years, 3-year probation. That's what he bought. He paid $5,000 to a woman to lie in court that he hit her on a vehicle. The judge gave him 3 years of probation, and people with a criminal background are forbidden from serving in the Ukrainian military. How do you take that story? I understand patriotic duty and all, but look, that's pretty original. He pinned a jail sentence on himself. Oh, Mark, there are different stories. We also got yesterday a train conductor who was charging $5,000 for hiding people in their ventilation system of their compartment in the train. So, and some people try to swim across river and drown and then need help. So if they don't drown completely, they need help of border guards to rescue them. So it's a big country, and it's a lot of people, and of course there will be some funny moments. There'll be some creative evaders, and it's not en masse because these are single cases that, and we can discuss it out in the open in the media. This is not a wave of evading. Of course, people are not happy when they're conscribed and when they're asked to join and serve their country on the front, but when they get it, they pack their things and they go to fight for their motherland. Well, what I'm bringing that is that in Russia they sometimes refer to Ukraine and say, well, yeah, don't fret about our practices and electronic conscripts in Ukraine. It's just as wild. And they, of course, omit the fact that in Ukraine people are defending their country. They're not going to a neighbor country to kill more people. But in your view, what is the main principal difference between the mobilization campaign in Russia and campaign in Ukraine? I'll answer why I think it's important. And what's the difference is that in Ukraine, humans do not lose their rights. After being conscribed to military, it doesn't mean that he is completely rightless. He can still defend if he has certain aspects, and to counter, he can bring it to court and he can defend his position. In Russia, you're completely rightless. So, Mark, in Ukraine, we have a very strong civil society. Here, every case when a person is complaining, especially publicly, at the government, immediately gains wide resonance in our media, especially with our different diasporas and different groups. It gets a wide media coverage, and of course they always find free attorneys and free legal help, and media jumps on that. So it's almost impossible to hush anything here, and you can question any decision of our authority. If, for an example, we had a situation when media brought up that the father of 5 was thrown under Bakhmut without proper training. Within 24 hours, it was determined that he is not a father of 5, at least formally he doesn't have 5 reported under him, and he was trained adequately, just like every other soldier. And yes, he went to Bakhmut and he agreed to go there. So that's how our society reacts. This is the principal difference between us and Russia, because these are two different political cultures. Here you cannot really be frivolous in power. Any emanation of some perceived wrongness raises a lot of groups in our country to protest against that. And even our powers here, they're not thinking like Russian powers. They, of course, sometimes make mistakes. We all graduated from Soviet Union, but in general, over the 31 year without, I would say our powers are sometimes even trying to not harm things a little too much. They could have been a little firmer in making some decisions, but they're trying to be more delicate. I have friends who are getting conscribed. Nobody really wanted to go to the front. Those who did, they already are. The ones who are still working with the economy and all, they may have their companies. A friend of mine has two companies, and he got the writ. He backed and left, and didn't even try to evade anything. And their families and their relatives, of course, support each other. This is a network society. We live in the networked society. So each person has a bunch of networks that he or she is a member of simultaneously. And they can be very different ones. And many decisions, even on the government scale, are being made not by institutions, but because people working there, they are interlinked with other networks, and they see all different angles of the same problem, and they find solutions more creatively. Plus, we had a good system of mobilization that we refreshed after Russia took Crimea and Donbas region from us. So we actually reacted real fast to the whole military situation in 22, and we brought people to the front in the proper quantities. But in Russia, they did not have that. They had a different doctrine that failed, so now they're experimenting and creating new model, and they're trying to make a better one. So we should not discount it. They really are persistent, so that will have some effect. Right now on the front, about 60% of fighters on their side are mobilized. By the way, it was confirmed that Wagner started getting mobilized troops as well into their ranks. I wanted to address that, because for several days, almost a week, but for several days, there is a scandal about that alcoholic who served in Bakhmut, near Bakhmut with Wagner, who is actually in Russia, who gave a video interview to Osechkin and Gulagu.net. And the next day, after that interview, special services reached out to him in Russia, and he appeared on the video screens later saying that, oh yeah, Osechkin just blackmailed me, that's why I said that. And today he came out again on the video, on one of the interviews, and said that Prigozhin just threatened me and my family. I don't care about my life, but he threatened my relatives' lives, and that's why I denounced what I said. So, a lot of questions related to that statement, but how do you think they can mix criminals and inmates with amateurs, with conscripts within Wagner? I don't know how they will initiate each other. I'm not even going to discuss that, but I think the criminal and prison order will win in this case. Yeah, Mark, there's a lot of prison culture in Russia. And Wagner inmates, they are just a fraction. They are the temporary piece within Wagner. They're the ones who have no rights, who are there to go to the front and die fighting. And core Wagner group, their officers, they don't care if you're inmate or if you're immobilized. Here is a rifle, and here are 3 clips, and you go there and attack in that direction. Just before, we only had inmates in those meat attacks, as they were called. And now, yeah, indeed, now they'll be mobilized as well. And the ones who are protesting, who don't want to go and die, they get shot immediately. So the rest get the message and they would obey. Where do you get the information that mobilized are being sent to Wagner? Do you have some prisoners of war? I have that information, Mark. Let's make it a little nebulous. I do have that. So it is a solid, confirmed, good data and source. Do I get it right? This information is with very high degree of trustworthiness, Mark. Why I'm asking, Olexiy, is that somebody in Russia might freak out to the degree of prolapse after hearing these news. So, yeah, Mark, this is indeed confirmed internally here in Ukraine that, yeah, we've seen mobilized with Wagners during attacks, and we already have some prisoners of war from those numbers. So it's amazing. They are sending their conscripts to a private military structure as they painted, but we do understand, of course, that this is not private and not Prigozhin's, but it's just very specific military detachment. So how do you think they evade? Should the commanding officer or Mark, just don't get there. Don't get conscribed because it's much easier to do that before you're on the front line. Also, it's pretty difficult to surrender in the field, but if you are fighting in the urban environment, it's fairly easy to surrender to Ukrainian counterparts. All right, so my usual, let's continue sharing links. We are at 250,000 with us, and do not forget to subscribe to Feygin Live and to Olexiy Arestovych channel. What's happening in Russia? Here, Ukrainian media referencing some of the Russian sources, their civil rights sources that are writing about it, that a retiree was arrested who was just saying good things about Zelensky in a resort environment, and she is now being prosecuted on the administrative level with penalties and all, and immediately somebody snitched on her. I want to say that it is incredible epidemic of reporting onto each other. People are saying that FSB and police, they're just drowning in reports, not in anonymous reports, in actual reports signed by actual people. And most of them are political motives. They are pointing at the ones who support peace or support Ukraine. I don't know what to do with that. People are attacking me for being too rough, but I don't know how else to deal with these people. Frankly, I'm also surprised, Mark, looking at that. Using Russian language, it's fucked up. Not a day without a new ridiculous jail term for something that's absolutely weird or awful. Today, Russian Congress actually came down to talking about that voting rights should only be given to men, not to women. So the country of science, the country of space, the country of nuclear researchers is now marching full speed into some dark medieval times. And speaking of nuclear, Yermak recently tweeted that there won't be no Rosatom anymore. It's being sanctioned now. I actually heard him talking about that on the third day of this war. This is his favorite topic. So finally they got J7. We brought it before, and that was not included into sanctions, but now G7 said that there is no such thing as Russian peaceful nuclear. And they actually have 16 projects outside of Russia that they're building. So yeah, that is being curbed now. And the topic of waste utilization, that's also important, right? Yeah, somehow it was settled. And one needs to understand that in order to use anything nuclear energy, you should be pretty smart, right? And you'd think that in Russia they have Bauman University, they have high diplomatic school, with supposedly smart people working and studying there and doing the research. Where is all that? Now we're hearing that only men vote, or people get a jail term after the guy got a conscription notice and he just tore it apart and threw it away, and he got jail. He is now being prosecuted at a pretense of devaluing Russian military because there were Russian military insignia on that paper that he tore. So not even for evading, which is a smaller term, but for something closer to treason, right? So this is the degree of ridiculousness there. That reminds of an old anecdote. We're standing, with the old leadership, we're standing on the edge of a cliff, but under new leadership, we made a step forward. And let's remember our Medvedev, who we keep laughing at. He makes awful statements, right, here and right and left, so he's very representative of what's going on in the country. We thought it's madhouse. Yeah, it is, for real, not just in his statements. And also, there was an interesting blowback out of other news that South Korea came and said that, well, we do not necessarily want to imply that we'll be supporting militarily of Ukraine, but we will support our allies, United States, and we are going to support Ukraine, which is a great story because they are one of the biggest manufacturers of artillery shells. And Medvedev, in reaction to that, said, "Oh, in return, let's supply then our military resources to North Korea and give them our tanks and armored vehicles." Well, the problem is they're out of tanks and armored vehicles, unless they want to bring up T-34s and put some dynamic defense on them and give them to Korea. There was also another fun story when, as a result of these documents leaked from Pentagon, there were some of them edited that Egypt was going to supply some military aid to Russia. So 40,000 missiles for reactive systems. And Egypt came out after that and said, no, we're not doing that. And now it turns out that they're actually going to supply some of that to Ukraine instead. So it's interesting how the situation changes. And Egypt is fully, for example, dependent upon American military supplies. So this is an interesting story. And there are interesting changes happening in the world, given that more and more people join de facto or de jure the coalition against Russian military invasion. And this is good, because that disease needs to be called as a joint effort by all humanity. And it does seem to me that Russia needs to be rescued from Demon and Putin, because the first victims of their rule are Russian people, millions of those who live in that country. There is not a single day passing without them inventing new punishment and putting new people under fake accusations in jail. Yeah, they're increasing terms for all kinds of disagreeing. For example, now they're talking about accepting another law for aiding the International Criminal Court or any Hague organizations. You can get a serious jail time for doing that. Nobody knows what does it mean. Do you have to post something in the newspaper or in your social media that court is a universal means of justice, and it's a legal institute that technically becomes aiding to International Criminal Court, and you can get jail time for that. Yes, Mark, so this is a very surprising story. A sad story to me. Last news for today. We've been live for about 42 and a half minutes. 90,000 click the like button, 290,000 with us. Oh, one more thing we forgot. Putin came out and said that they will be renaming that youth organization they have back into pioneers, like in the Soviet times. Oh, we're gonna get pioneers again. This is amazing. Right? This is fantastic, Olexiy. This is a known paradox, right? Many people think that modern-day Russia and USSR are very similar. Nothing of that kind is close to true. Because in USSR, Putin and Patrushev and all that gang would be summarily executed already, or they would not be able to rise above the level of colonels. And quoting Americans and British officers of those days, they were commenting that Soviet Union leadership was playing by the rules. They were played by people who also fought in the Second World War, who saw the atrocities of war, so they never violated certain boundaries. Yes, they came to certain countries, yes, there were military conflicts, but there was ideology, and now there is a vacuum in that stead. And the only time when Putin turned to ideology was when he got afraid of the people with white ribbons a few years ago, the protest movement, when he brought up Alexander III and his values, the defender of so-called fatherland. And that's the influence of that policy. Now, 10 years later, we have reinstatement of pioneer organization without understanding the real core of and the meaning behind it. They're just copying the shape, the form. So that stinky emptiness is what degrading day by day is what modern day Russia is, and the main victim is population of Russia, the first main victim. For one mad idiot, they're wasting tens of thousands of people into the Bakhmut mud. This is something. All right, one more last thing before we conclude for today. Girkin, sometimes the turbo patriot, recently made a statement that Simonyan, Putin's propagandist, is an alcoholic, and Krasovsky, another propagandist, is a pederast, is a gay, blatant gay. So what do you want me to discuss here, Mark? Alcohol or gayness? No, well, they attack us in all kinds of ways, usually too. But it's an interesting, I wanted to bring it in light that it's an interesting infighting between the official propaganda in face of Solovyov, Kulkov, and Simonyan and others, and between these angry turbo patriots like Girkin. So the degree is definitely heating up. It's a serious stage. They're writing on each other to bring to justice, appealing to system. But for now, this is ideological fight, and we understand, of course, each of them is being used by certain departments of special services or military. Somebody has a military intel service behind them. Somebody has Minister of Defense or President's administration behind their shoulders. But do you think that ideological divide? Obviously, Girkin is the ultra part of that who screams, "You guys lost everything. We are better imperials and you guys are losers." You did mention that he is more of a Russian world than imperial. No, I meant he is imperial. Girkin is definitely an imperial. Okay, yes. The imperial concept where ethnicity is not a primary factor, but there is a group opposing him, which is also rather different, pretty international, and they're trying to almost put him to jail. Do you think that can lead, on the background of any changes on the front, that can lead to actual serious infighting that can spill out into the political sphere? Well, for that, Mark, the changes on the front need to be not just serious, but catastrophic. We are not excluding that probability, right? We're not. But it basically needs to be to a degree that the power would lose the legitimacy of their power. That's when all the inner bickerings that we are now observing will start getting shaped into a civil war type conflict. Not just a conflict of elites, but a conflict of society. And then we'll see the leaders and the groups, and they'll be divided regionally or some other levels. But that all depends upon the successes of Ukrainian military on the front. But the conflict of elites indeed is going on. That's a fact. And they're not even picking words and attacking each other. Russian society is rather complex. The way they are always seen or often seen as columns marching under Putin's orders, not exactly. They are very complex groups there, and they have complex relations. And there is a good basis for theories that if the war will be lost, will be drastically lost, Russia will be facing dark times, probably times of civil unrest, maybe even to a degree of civil war. All right, we're coming to an end of this stream. We had a really poor quality of internet today on Alexei's side. Mark, we had a green spark over Kiev. We don't know what's going on. There are already some rumors here floating that it might have been Zelensky shooting a green flare to indicate the counteroffensive. Side note, this was the NASA satellite falling out of the sky, the remnants of it. Okay, our next meeting was scheduled for Saturday, 10 p.m. Is that still in force? Yes, Mark, we're going according to schedule. So English version will come out Sunday morning, Eastern Time, US. And yeah, it's interesting. Pioneers, be ready, the old slogan. Are you saying that to the mobilized? Yeah, of course, because they'll be the ones, the first pioneers to go jump in the grinder. All right. See you Saturday. Goodbye, everybody.